Okay, so continuing on now, we have a couple questions left. We got a more complex one where there's division involved, quite a complex one where division is involved, and then one of these diagram word problem types. So let's go through this one, and we'll just try and make some observations as we go. So, when you're looking at a quadratic divided by another quadratic, and really, again, the first thing you need to do when you're looking at something like this is factor, because it is not obvious what you can cancel until you have taken some time to see what factors are actually interacting here. Once you've factored them, probably what will happen is a bunch of the terms will be ones that that we can cancel out. Now, I said that it's good to state the restrictions at the beginning, but in this question it's not that easy to see, for example, in the second denominator here, what numbers actually make this 0. So before we get to that, let's factor first, and we'll just see how this goes. So I'm going to factor the top. I need a sum of -1 and a product of -20. So we got x minus 5 and x plus 4 on the top. On the bottom we have a common x, and then we have an x minus 6. Okay, so the left side part, you should be able to get it to look like this, which again is just the top factored and the bottom factored. So then we're looking at divided by, and then we'll do the other fraction here. So two numbers that add up to 9 and multiply to 20 would be x plus 5 and x plus 4. And on the bottom, two numbers that add up to -12 but multiply to positive 36. We are looking at 6 and 6. So x minus 6 and another x minus 6. Okay, so something like this. Now, when you see this, okay, it is now obvious that x is not allowed to be 0. That would be where this one here comes in. So let's just try and do a... Okay, this is maybe beyond my abilities. So, let's restrict that accordingly. And then we have an x minus 6 that's also going to provide a restriction. And let's say, actually, probably too hard to see. Let's say as well over here that x cannot be 6. Okay, and again, that red factor is coming from the fact that x minus 6 is on the bottom. Now, x minus 6 is on the bottom over here and over here, but we've already stated it once. Once it's out of the domain, it doesn't come back. So we've stated our two restrictions, and that's all well and good. So we go down to the next step, okay? And the next step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say to myself, okay, I don't really know how to divide polynomials, but what I do know how to do is multiply them. And if I multiply the reciprocal, right, I put the x plus 5 and the x plus 4 on the bottom now, and the 2x minus 6 is on the top. Now I can see something else that, I may not have been that obvious to me at the beginning. Again, from the previous part, x is not equal to 0 nor 6. Also, I'm going to add -5 and -4 now, because you can see -5 would make this bracket here 0, and that's why that one is restricted. And that's just to connect here with this -5, and this -4 is going to make this bracket 0, which let's put it in green. Okay, so we have, like, you can see how what I said before, like, as you go through the question, new restrictions sometimes develop, right? So anyway, now that we're looking at this, we should be looking for things that can be simplified. Remember too that to multiply numbers together, all you're really doing is just joining the fractions, right? So you just join the two fractions together like that, as though they're one big fraction, right? Because it's top times the top and bottom times the bottom. So we get just going to write it out. Sorry, this is not really cooperating. X minus 6, another x minus 6, and then down here an x plus 5 and an x plus 4. And that gets rid of the multiplication sign, right? We don't need this anymore. Okay, so that's what we have. Now what I do, I look through for common factors. I notice that this plus 4, x plus 4 down here, can be struck. This x plus 4 up here. I also notice that one of these x minus 6's can be cancelled along with this x minus 6. Now again, it's tempting that the minus 5 and the plus 5 could go, like I could try to factor out a negative 1 or something, but you can't. There's nothing you can do with x minus 5 and x plus 5. You just kind of have to leave that one. And so we'll go to our answer now. Our answer is our x minus 5 stayed, our x minus 4 didn't. We kept an x minus 6, we kept an x on the bottom, we kept an x plus 5. And of course our restrictions would all be the same restrictions from before. So make sure when you give your answer, it's very clear. Like, you know, if you're in the habit of circling your answers or whatever, just make sure your restrictions are also circled. Again, probably worth taking a second just to look at this one as an equation here. So x squared minus x minus 20, and then we have x squared minus 6x, and then we have x squared plus 9x plus 20, and then we have x squared minus 12x plus 36. Okay, so then the question asked us f over g, right? So my f function divided by my g function, and then divided by h over p. Okay, and you know, that's kind of what you're looking at, right? It's just like two fraction, like a fraction on the top and then a fraction on the bottom. So, you know, again, how do I know if I did this right? GeoGebra is pretty good at this, right? Because you type simplify q, and it will actually be able to figure out how to do this, right? So it gives us, notice it gives us our answer. X minus 6, x minus 5 on the top, okay, which is exactly what we have, and then x and x plus 5 on the bottom. Okay, so again, that our simplified version worked. Okay, so last one here, again, really there's nothing to this except just more factoring, and you know, you're just factoring this with decomposition. It's 4 decomposition questions in one, and then we're looking for common factors and then canceling them. I think, why don't we do decomposition for the first half, and we'll just use GeoGebra for the second half just to speed this up a little bit. So 12x squared minus 5x plus minus 2. My sum is minus 5. My product is minus 24. So the numbers I need are 8 and 3, and 8 needs to be the negative, right? Because the sum is negative, so the bigger number is negative. So plus 3x minus 2 is what we've got there, right? That's how we decompose the middle term. Then we go ahead and factor the first two. We go 4x. We get 3x minus 2. There's nothing I can take out of 3x minus 2, so I'm just going to take out a positive 1, right? And I end up with that, and I end up with 4x plus 1 times 3x minus 2. Okay, that would be the top left thing factored. Okay, now the bottom left thing, 8x squared plus 2x minus 21. The sum I'm looking for here is 2. The product is negative 168. So again, I'm looking for numbers that are very close together because their sum is 2. The positive number is slightly bigger, the negative number is smaller. I know that 13 times 13 is 169, so I'm guessing the numbers here are 12 and 14, and that the number I need, the 14, has to be bigger, and we'll see if this works. So I take out a 2x, what I'm left with is 4x plus 7. Then I take out a 3, I'm left with 4x plus 7. Again, it looks good because the brackets are the same, 2x minus 3, 4x plus 7. Okay, so basically what I've managed to do with the question so far is I factored like the first part of the first thing. Okay, so you know what, this is going fast enough, I might as well just keep going. So 12x squared plus x minus 6. I'm looking for a sum of 1 and a product of negative 72. So again, the two numbers multiply -72 that are very close together because they're only separated by 1. So the number I'm looking for there, 12x squared plus 9x minus 8x minus 6, right? 9 and 8 would fit the bill. So just bump this one down to a new page. So we factor out 3x, we get 4x plus 3. We factor out -2, we get 4x plus 3, looks good. 3x minus 2 and 4x plus 3 is the factored form of the top right. And now we have the last one, the bottom right, 8x squared minus 2x minus 15. So 8x squared minus 2x minus 15. Here, my sum is -2. My product is, let's see, 15 and 8 is 120. So -120. The numbers you can see there are 10 and 12. So 8x squared minus 12x plus 10x minus 15. And we factor out a 4x. We get 2x minus 3. And then we factor out a 5, and we get 2x minus 3, which factors overall to 4x plus 5, 2x minus 3. Okay, so now we've got the 4 parts we need. All the factoring is done. We just need to write the question out over again. So let's see if we can kind of get this on one page for a sec. Sorry. Okay, so to write this out all in one step, we have 4x plus 1 over, times 3x minus 2, divided by 2x minus 3, 4x plus 7. Okay, so that's the first chunk. Then we have divide by, and then the second chunk. So the second chunk was this here, 3x minus 2 and 4x plus 3. And that was the third thing I did. The final thing was 4x plus 5 and 2x minus 3. Okay, so when you divide it, when you factor it, you get this. Now, again, be careful. We can't have any denominator be 0. So, x is not allowed to be 1.5, or let's say 3 over 2. Okay, -7 over 4. Just think about why that one would work for a second. If this is -7 over 4, then when you multiply it by 4, it's -7, and you add 7, you get 0. X also cannot be -5 over 4, and it cannot be 3 over 2 again, which we've already stated, so we don't need to state it again. Now, to divide, remember, is to multiply by the reciprocal. So let's take this. Oops, excuse me. Take this, and then rather than divide, let's think of it as multiplication. And let's take this, that's all right, becomes the top, and 3x minus 2, 4x plus 3 is the bottom. Okay, so now we have this. Now, of course, I made a new denominator here. I flipped it over, right? So I gotta go ahead and add some new restrictions. 3x minus 2 is a new restriction. So x is not allowed to be 2/3, right? Because 2/3 would cause a problem there. And then -3/4 would be the other one. -3/4 is what happens to this one when you multiply by 4 and add 3, it creates 0. So all of these ones from the previous step I should also write just so we have them all in one place, so my answer is very clear what I'm saying. So all of those values are restricted. Once I'm at this step, I can go ahead and start canceling things. So I noticed there is a 3x minus 2 here, which I will strike, and a 3x minus 2 here, which I will also strike. There's a 2x minus 3 here, which we can get rid of, and a 2x minus 3 here. And I believe that's all we can do. 4x plus 1, 4x plus 5, 4x plus 3, 4x plus 7, none of those cooperate. So we're just going to state 4x plus 1, 4x plus 5 over 4x plus 7, and 4x plus 3. Okay, so that's how you do that one. Again, the restrictions are just here above. I don't need to write them again. On your test, you just circle them and tell me that that's part of your answer. Let's pause this segment, and then in the last segment I'll cover that word problem.